Welcome csc102 class to WD07 color calendar, and this is the spring 2020 edition of it. I have to change it every time because it's a little bit different because the calendar changes. There's a PDF, a sample PDF, and there's instructions. I have them open right now, so here's the instructions and here's the sample in PDF format. And a couple things to point out. This is going to be created with a table, and we're going to start this from scratch. You don't have to download anything, but this is how it's going to look at the end. We're similar to this, and we're going to have 7 columns across. You can see since March starts the 1st on a Sunday, it's very easy to see that there's 7 columns as you go across. So there's 7 columns, and then there's 7 rows. There's the top row that has the month. There's the days of the week, which is the second row, and then there's the 5 weeks that are in the calendar. So altogether there's 7 columns and 7 rows. And we're going to make these, I think, about 1 inch high. These that are here, we're going to alternate. You can see the colors. We're going to alternate with a light green and a dark green. And then in the end, we're going to color the 17th green, and we're going to try to throw a little leprechaun in there. And if we need, we could even throw in this little spring break graphic in here because this is spring break for Warren for this year, for this semester. So I'm going to go launch Word. And I am doing this on Windows, and you could just start with a blank document. And it's very important when you start with a blank document, for this one in particular, that a couple things that you do. First of all, under layout, make sure that there's no space after. So go here and make sure you put that down to 0. I went to layout. You could also do that under paragraph settings. If you clicked on the paragraph settings, you could have done that. But more importantly is orientation. If you go to orientation under layout, make sure that it's landscape, because we're going to make this calendar wider. And if you're not sure, you could zoom out a little bit. And now I can see that it's landscape, scrolling a little bit, that it's 11 across, 8.5 high. And also our margins, I think we're just going to do 1 inch all around. So we could just use normal. I think that's what it was to start. And then what we're going to do is go to insert right away. And what we're going to insert is a table. Now you could insert these things, and this is how you do it under Google Docs. I like just inserting a table this way by doing insert table, but under Google Docs you'll highlight these little blocks here and do 7 by 7. But let's try this way with insert table. And we could just put 7 here, so I'm going to put 7 columns and then 7 rows. And you could just leave it on fixed column width, which is auto, which means it'll stretch across within the margin. So that's all you have to do right now, and just hit OK. All right, the first thing we're going to do is highlight these top 2 rows. You could go right to the left of these and just kind of highlight down and get these top 2 rows. And then you'll see table tools up here. And if you go to layout, you're going to see a height here. Mine says 0.17. If you click up on here, you could take it to 0.2, take it to 0.3. I know in the sheet I say 0.25. 0.3 is fine. You could leave it at that. And then while we're doing this, even though this is different from the instructions, highlight these, the 5 that are below those top 2. Make the height of those 1 inch. So keep going up until they're 1 inch. It should stay on the page. If for whatever reason they go to the next page, you could make them a little smaller, but that should be fine. So we have the sizes of those finished. And then I'm going to go back to the top row, and I'm going to highlight across here, and they have a merge right up here. So you can just hit merge cells. It'll take those 7 and make them 1. And then if you want to highlight both these top 2 rows again, even if you highlight through there, we're going to use this little align icon here, and the one in the middle aligns up and down and left and right, horizontally and vertically. So I'm going to click that. So that way when we type in here and I click here and I type March 2020, you can see that it centers up and down and right and left. And then you could highlight this and change the font. You could use the Home tab, and we're just going to make it Arial Black. If you see Arial Black, choose that and make that 18. And then in here, we're going to type in here, and I'm just going to put Sunday, and then I'm going to tab over and make that Monday and do these all across. And then when you have all these, you could highlight the whole row and make them Arial Black 12. That should be big enough. And then we're going to go down here. The alignment that's on here can stay the same. I'm going to type 1 and then type 2. Now before I type all of these, I'm going to highlight the bottom 5 rows, and I'll just scroll down here and make sure all the final 5 rows are highlighted, and I'm going to change that font, and instead of doing 12, I'm going to do Arial Black, and I'm going to do 14. Make it a little bit bigger than we've done in the past. And then to fill these all in, all that you have to do, and again, March does start on a Sunday, the 1st. After this number, I'm going to hit tab, and then I'll hit 3, and then tab 4, tab 5, tab 6, tab 7, and then when I do tab, it'll go down to the next row, and then I'm going to finish these off until they get down to the 31st, which I think is a Tuesday, and then we'll put 1, 2, 3, 4 for April. So I'm just going to finish that off right now. And now I have the 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to color these. As long as I just did these ones down here, I'm going to highlight these 4 down here, and I'm going to make them gray. And I'll use my text tool up here on the home tab and just pick a light gray. And then I'll go back to the top. And now we're ready to color this. And to color this, I'm just going to highlight this one, and I think you can hit Control, and I'm going to skip over to the row with the 8th, and then I'll go down and get this row, and I'm going to make them like a light green. So I could use the paint bucket that's right up here, and I'm just going to grab like a light green and do that. And then I'm going to highlight this row and make that a dark green and use the paint bucket again. And since I'm doing that, I need to make the text white. So I'm going to click on my text tool and make sure the text is white. And then it's pretty much colored other than the border. Now for the border, I just want to click on this select table tool right here, this little kind of icon in the corner. If I click on that and then I go to layout, I should see table properties, which is over here. And I'll click on table properties. It'll open up this table properties window. And I want to go down to borders and shading and open that up. And then where it has automatic, that's the color. It doesn't look like a color. I'm going to choose a dark green. And I'm going to make it like 2 1/4. And if this is showing up nice and thick there, that means it's good. So you don't have to do anything else other than hit OK. And then hit OK again. I'm not seeing the border. Let me do that one. Oh, there it is. It like delayed for a second. So there's the border. Now it looks like it always shows up with a little bit of like white up here for some reason, but that's okay. That's exactly what you want. And this is the way our calendar should look. And the last thing we're going to have to do here is put in our little St. Patrick's leprechaun. So I'll color this and use the home tab. And I only want the font, so I want this one over here to be the Kelly green. And then while I'm here, I'm just going to put my cursor there and I'll do a space. And we're going to paste in a graphic. And keep in mind that when you paste it in, it's going to be gigantic, and then you're going to have to resize it. So let me go here, and I already had a search going on for a bunch of leprechauns. So here's one here. I'll just use this one for the time being. Right-click and do Copy Image, and I'll go back to Word, and I'm going to paste it. Now, like I said, it's going to be gigantic when you paste it here. And I'm going to do Control-V. It's not letting me right-click. And there it is. It's gigantic. Now, if you try to, you can grab on the handles, and actually, what's better than doing that is double-clicking on this graphic, and then you can see the size over here. I can see it's like 13 inches by 9. Now, it's bigger than my paper. So what I'm going to do is make it like maybe 0.5 or something like that, and hit Enter. And it'll make it really small. And there it is. Now, it's still in line with the text. So what you could do, even after you double-clicked on it, you'll still see this wrap text here. And then I could go on here and say in front of. And that'll let it float around. And then I can make it a little bit bigger. Now it does have a white background, so I'm not going to do a whole lot with it. And I'll just leave it like that. And I'll click off it. So I can move it around. And if it was transparent like a PNG file, I could make it overlap a little, but I'll just leave it there. And then if I wanted to go back and find some spring break graphic, I could go here. Now make sure you look for spring break like clip art, or else you'll get a bunch of women in bikinis and stuff like that. So just go spring break clip art. And whatever you do here, I know some of these are kind of cheesy. I think I've used this one already. Now you can see that's gigantic. It's 2400, so that's gonna like break your table when you first put it in. So if you have another one that's smaller, here's one that Enjoy Your Spring Break. This is a little smaller. I'm gonna click on this, and I'm gonna right click and do Copy Image, and I'll go back to Word, and maybe I'll just put it right here for now. I'll just put a space, and I'll just do Control-V. And it'll be gigantic again, and I'll double click on it, and there's my size over there, and you can see it's like 3 by 7, so I'll make the width like 1 inch for now. Then I'll go to wrap text, and I'll do in front of text, and now I can float it. Now I can make it bigger, so it kind of goes on top of other things. I'll kind of put it here, and that looks okay. And I'll click off of that, and I'll go up here. So that's pretty much it. That's our calendar. So I didn't save it yet. So I'm going to do File, Save As. And I think I already have one here that I was working on. You could just call it WD07 Color Calendar. I like to put Spring 2020 on there for me, but you wouldn't need that. You just need your last name, first initial. So save it wherever you typically save it, and then upload it through coursework like you normally would. And I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else. I think this might have been like a dark green or something. You could always go here and make that dark green or something. And I think that's it. That's our calendar using a table. Now, we didn't do a whole lot with tables. We just kind of experimented a little bit with tables. They can get a little more complex as you work with them and put lots of data inside them. But just for a little decorative kind of thing here, it's a little introduction to working with a table and formatting the table and coloring the table and shading it and putting a border on. So that's WD07, and this is on the Windows version of Word.